Hey folks, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our closer look as well as a comparison between the FlyFusion Pentop computer and the LiveScribe series of smart pens. So behind these two are the same type of concept as well as technology. They use the same camera to scan a special dot matrix paper. So unfortunately, you can only use the paper crafted by the manufacturer, although in both cases you can print out your own if you have a laser printer, although this is a slightly tedious process. What's different here is the FlyFusion pen is more of what you'd expect from just getting a computer. It can install software and third-party apps and tricks, but it doesn't have the audio capabilities of the LiveScribe pen, which automatically syncs your writing to whatever is being said in a lecture, in a meeting, or just your general thoughts when you're jotting down things. Both of them come with software suites designed by the companies, but you can also try some other third-party programs that allows you to transform your scanned notes into a digital form, so it basically translates the handwriting notes into typed notes, which is fairly cool. And there's also basic calculator apps which can be performed and arithmetic functions that can be performed on both of these pens. So otherwise, the LiveScribe pen also features an external OLED display, which is not present on the Leapfrog version of the Smart Pen, although it relies on completely voice-guided prompts. So whenever doing anything such as calculations, it's going to actually say 5 plus 5 equals 10 or something like that. So if you're in a private environment, you might want to plug in your own pair of headphones, and it uses a standard 3.5mm jack, maybe when you're in public and still trying to complete some of these tasks. So the very top here features also a slot on the Pentop computer, FlyFusion, which is actually the expandable memory component if you want more storage as you install more apps, but otherwise it uses the older standard, a mini USB cable to connect to a computer, Mac or PC to sync up the software as well as the notes that you've written into the memory. So it relies completely on this wired connection, whereas with LiveScribe, the first generation Echo did have only wired connection, just like the FlyFusion, but with this Sky version, it's syncing via Wi-Fi into the cloud, and there's another version that uses Bluetooth. So there's some more wireless capabilities. As far as a hardware perspective is concerned, you can see obviously the size difference here. The LiveScribe pens are still classified as kind of bulky, but at least it's manageable. There isn't a clip though, so it's not as easy to take with you when you're traveling, but it still is very lightweight, and writing for 1 or 2 hours really isn't an issue. With the FlyFusion, it really is a problem because it's completely too bulky. The battery and everything in here makes it almost 4 to 5 times the size of a regular pen, so it's both hefty as well as not too comfortable when you're writing for extended periods, which makes this not as ideal for longer lectures. Otherwise, we have access on the LiveScribe pens, just a simple power on-off switch, a speaker, as well as a microphone for recording and picking up the sound, a soft touch grip area, as well as the pen tip, which includes a cap, and then the sensor for the camera, and that's it. On the top here, there was a 3.5mm headphone jack, just like on the FlyFusion, and there's a micro USB port used for charging, so it's a newer standard than the older mini USB that's found on the FlyFusion. On the FlyFusion, there's a power on-off switch on here, and below here there's actually a loudspeaker, which is fairly good. Also plays back MP3 tracks and can act as an MP3 player if you download some songs and put it into the internal memory, if that's what you want to do. The pen tip is protected by a self-contained nub that you have to twist to reveal and then pulls back in. Both of these pen tips are of course replaceable and will last you for about 100 pages each, and then you can also check out some third-party refill tips for a lower cost. So again, the technology behind both is identical. Basically, you have this special paper, and if you look super closely, you'll notice these tiny little dots, and this is what's being used to map the position for the camera sensors, so that when you offload the handwriting into a computer, it transforms it into a digital copy, just like what you have in your journal or notebook. And that's pretty cool because it then allows you to email, save your notes, organize your notes, as well as convert it into a type form, for instance, even though there are still quite a few errors. Now, there are a few differences now from the utility side of things. The FlyFusion is more catered towards a younger crowd, and that kind of shows with its software suite that LeapPad kind of sells, and you have access to things like mathematics as well as grammar and games that you can doodle out and interact with a pen. So it can do a bit more, but at the same time, it's not as useful for older audiences, although the ability to play back music and use it as an MP3 player can be kind of cool. Otherwise, with the FlyFusion, again, it's the ability to sync up notes correspondingly that is really interesting. So I have a quick demo here to show you guys with the LiveScribe pen. I wrote down a few words as I was recording the audio, and afterwards I can just tap on this to play back the corresponding audio during the time.
Of the writing capabilities of this LiveScribe Sky Wi-Fi pen. Equation or some important facts, perhaps if I'm in class, some due dates. And when I'm done, I just hit on stop and then tap on the word again to play it back directly, the part that I want to correspond with the audio.
So anyways, that's how that process works. You can see that there are still a few speaker-based prompts that it can handle, such as clicking start or stop. There's going to be a sound just to tell you that you've done that. You can turn the volume off, however, same thing with the FlyFusion pen, or plug in your own headphones again for a more private experience. So it's an audio component which is really quite useful in lecture hall environments where there isn't going to be an audio podcast available for whatever meeting or lecture that you're in. Battery life on both is about the same. They'll both last you, again, a fair amount of pages. I would say with regular usage, I had to charge each after about a week of use, so they're pretty decent on both. But again, the LiveScribe pen is a bit more comfortable and more practical for most day-to-day tasks. With the pricing, however, it's Leapfrog's FlyFusion pen that has the edge, since it is an older product. You can usually find it for under $25, but even LiveScribe's pens, including the Echo pen, which is first generation model, still retails for around $90, sometimes $100, depending on where you look, and that might even be used. So it's a bit more expensive, and for most of the core functions, as far as scanning documents out, you get that with the FlyFusion pen. So at the end of the day, I have to say that depending on your uses, I would recommend different ones. Obviously, the better one for most general users, I would say, is going to be the LiveScribe, despite the fact that the FlyFusion can do a bit more. You can actually create your own settings as well as write your own games and program it on the special FlyFusion paper. So you can actually write out letters and create your own menus. You don't have to just use the ones that LiveScribe, for instance, gives you. You can write out your own keypad if you want to. So it's a bit more versatile, and the programming is a bit more dynamic. However, it's really the audio component that makes the LiveScribe truly smart, in my book, for most people who do meetings and conferences. But if you're only looking for scanning, you don't really care about the audio component, then the Leapfrog FlyFusion pen really isn't a huge downside as far as functionality from the LiveScribe. It's a bit more bulky, but you're also getting it at a fraction of the cost. So depending on your needs, some might be a better value, but the overall better pen is definitely the LiveScribe. So thanks for watching this video comparison here at OS Reviews between the FlyFusion and the LiveScribe Sky Smart Pens.